a beautiful art. You are bridging languages, you're bridging sensibilities. For me, I was having trouble with my own work after my first book was published. I had a little lull and I didn't know what to do. And I made a friend in San Diego, Maya Flecol, and she was the daughter of Claribel Alegría. And finally, she brought me her mother's books to the kitchen table, and there were many books, and they were in different languages. They had been translated into German and French, but not in English. And I had studied Spanish in college, and so I said to Maya, why isn't she in English? And she said, I don't know, she's just never been translated. And I did a little research and discovered that, you know, very few women were translated then from other languages, and most of the translators were men, and they just tended to translate each other. So I thought, well, I'm going to translate a woman. And of course, I was very naive. I didn't understand how difficult translation was. And in my case, it wasn't a matter of the language, although that, you know, my Spanish wasn't at all perfect. The problem was the sensibility. She had grown up under military dictatorship in El Salvador, and her poems reflected that experience, and I didn't understand much of what she was writing about. I had no way of understanding it. So I went to stay with her for the summer, where she was living in exile in Spain with Maya, and we sat down every afternoon and talked, and I worked through the translations in the company of the poet. And this was my first translation. I've done others since then, some translation of dead poets, some of living, but it's a separate thing than writing, but you are trying to bring forth the sensibility of another poet in a new language, you know, to sort of, it's not the same. The music isn't there, you know, of the original, obviously, and some of the nuances and some of the layering of the language and associational meanings, but you're making something. And, you know, when people disparage translation, I like to remind them that they read the Greek classics in translation, they read scripture in translation. You know, most of the great books of Western so-called civilization, which, as Gandhi said, would be a good idea, are written in translation, you know. So it's something we have to accept.